Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
There will be an ad at the end of this video. Now, Graham sent me notes. Steve, check out this wild story out of Georgia from Atlanta News First. Judge reverses verdict after a juror accused of lying about his job. So, after more than 20 years of litigation, a man hoped a jury would finally hold the people he believed were responsible for his wife's death this past March. The man's wife died in January of 2003, shortly after leaving Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in a taxi while on a business trip. She never got to her destination because the taxi crashed into a line of trees on I-85. The roads were slick after a recent rain, and there's some issues with the condition that the taxi was in. So the man now is raising the two children they had, but his wife is gone. He said, I heard a knock on the door, and it was a police officer and the pastor of our local church. They told me that she had passed away at the scene. The taxi cab driver pleaded guilty to vehicular homicide for driving with unsafe tires because the cab's tires lacked sufficient tread. And so before we start analyzing that too much, remember the man pleaded guilty to it. He pleaded guilty to it. So the family filed a lawsuit against the driver, the taxi cab company, and a city inspector who had passed the taxi's safety inspection a day before the crash. So apparently, the inspector looked at the car the day before and said, yep, it's good. So the attorney for the family said this woman lost her life for reasons that never should have happened. On March 4th, a Fulton County jury found the taxi cab company, which is no longer in business, liable for the woman's death, but not the driver or the city inspector. That right there is an outcome that seems so improbable and weird. You go, wait, the driver pleaded guilty to vehicular homicide, but a jury says, but he's not responsible for what happened here. I mean, that's just, it doesn't make sense. So the attorney says, I was shocked for these jurors not to also hold the driver who pled guilty to vehicular homicide for unsafe tires and the city inspector who passed the taxi with those slick tires on his vehicle less than 24 hours before the death makes no sense. So after the trial, the attorneys spoke to some of the jurors to ask why they didn't hold the taxi cab driver and the city inspector liable too. And keep in mind that there's nothing wrong with speaking with jurors after a trial is over. In fact, a lot of times a judge will tell the jurors, if you guys want to, you can leave. If you want to, you can stay. And the attorneys might want to speak to you, and it's a great learning experience for everybody. And I've spoken to jurors after a trial where they all stuck around, and I've also been there where half of them stuck around, the other half didn't. They're like, hey, I'm sick of this, I'm out of here. And you're allowed to do that, by the way. But the point is that there's nothing wrong with this. So he speaks to the jurors, and according to documents that the attorneys now filed, a juror spoke up and said he was the person responsible for the jury's decision to withhold holding the driver and the city inspector liable. So one guy said, yep, that was me, I did that. Now, of course, you've got to get other jurors to go along with you, but the guy basically said that he took responsibility. I'm the guy who did that. I did that. He said, I stopped that, and repeated it and said, I'm the one that stopped that. Now, here's the interesting part. Court transcripts show that the man identified himself as a corporate attorney before he was selected to serve on the jury, according to trial records. So during trial selection, jury selection, they'll ask you questions, and they'll often ask you, what do you do for a living? To find out, what you do. I'm a taxi cab driver. You'd like to know that, right? However, there are also questionnaires the jurors fill out beforehand, and they're often asked, what do you do for a living on that questionnaire? And so jurors are told that when you're being questioned under oath, your answers are very important, and they've got to be accurate. And so here's the problem. The Supreme Court of Illinois had suspended this man from practicing law back in 2008. He's accused of withholding money from a client, among other allegations, and he's never been a licensed attorney in any state since then. So the allegation now is that when he was asked before this trial, what do you do for a living? He said, I am a corporate attorney. And in reality, he was previously an attorney, but now he is not an attorney. And that is a big difference. So prospective jurors in Fulton County sign a form pledging to tell the truth about their occupation, among other things. They also watch a video which reminds them of their responsibilities and the importance of telling the truth. So in June, the family has appealed the verdict of the jury and claimed that this juror's actions should be considered juror misconduct because he misrepresented his professional credentials. About a month later, a Fulton County state court judge ordered a new trial, writing that the jury's verdict was contrary to the weight of the evidence. So the order does not address the family's claims of jury misconduct, but I suspect it was partly what weighed in there. But the fact that the jury also came back and said, we do not hold the driver responsible, even though the driver himself has pled guilty, the judge says that's against the great weight of the evidence. And so that is something a judge can do. It's very, very rare, though. Very, very rare. I've seen judges actually say, I will not upset a jury verdict unless it is like illegal or something. So the verdict to hold the taxi cab company liable for the woman's death still holds, and that awarded the family $25 million in damages. But remember that the taxi cab company no longer exists. The judge's order also means the family will have another opportunity to retry the case against the driver and the city inspector. Now, the man here at the center of the story now lives in San Francisco, said the trial is not about money. He said, I just feel I don't want to let the behavior that I've watched over these years get away with it. And he's talking, of course, about the taxi cab had been inspected the day before by an inspector who says, oh, it's fine. And then the next day when it's in a fatal crash, somebody goes, oh, those tires are inappropriate. A new trial date's not been scheduled. And then meanwhile, the guy who said that he was an attorney is not giving interviews, despite being requested. According to the National Center for State Courts, juror misconduct claims are on the rise from fewer than 50 in 2000 to nearly 250 more recently. I'm guessing that's by the year. In criminal trials, juror misconduct can lay the groundwork to free convicted criminals. You might remember Scott Peterson, convicted in 2004 of murdering his late wife, Lacey, and her unborn son. But recently, Peterson's attorney appealed his conviction after they claim a juror lied to the court that she'd never been involved in a domestic violence case. And so we're waiting to see what happens there. In some cases, jurors can face repercussions themselves. In April of 2023, authorities arrested a potential juror in the criminal trial involving Atlanta rapper Young Thug for allegedly filming court proceedings on her phone, which, of course, she'd been told not to do. Likewise, I am curious about one thing, and that is that a judge could hold a juror in contempt of court for making those false statements under oath and causing this to happen. Because what you've got now is a situation where they're going to retry an entire case, drag in all new jurors, and start over. And so it's going to waste a lot of time and money for people, and it shouldn't be wasted because it should have ended at the first trial. And so it's a crazy situation, but the judge didn't mention the jury misconduct in his order, so I think the juror's okay on this in terms of he's not going to get hit with costs. I've told the story before. I'll keep it brief. But I was in court one day watching a trial take place. I was not involved in the trial. And the court took a break around 4:30 in the afternoon, getting ready to end for the day. The judge goes, we're going to be back for at least one more day of trial. And so I'm going to dismiss the jury now. And a juror raised his hand. The judge goes, yes. And he goes, I won't be here tomorrow. He didn't say, I've got a problem. I have to talk to you. He just said, I will not be here tomorrow. Judge goes, excuse me? I won't be here tomorrow. Judge goes, you're required to be here tomorrow. I won't be here tomorrow. Judge goes, do you remember when I told you at the beginning of this case that trial might take 5 days and today's only day 3, something like that? Guy goes, yeah, but I've got someplace I got to be tomorrow. The judge turned to a bailiff and goes, handcuff him and take him downstairs. And now, a lot of people, when they hear that story, go, Steve, that's so harsh. The guy got arrested. Well, the guy saying, I won't be here tomorrow is also a problem, though, because when they were doing jury selection if the guy had a problem that he couldn't be there on Thursday, he had to say that. I can't be here on Thursday. I got a problem. I got to, and if the judge at that point said, I won't allow that, that'd be a different situation. But here, they're already 3 days into a trial, and one of the jurors is going, I'm not coming tomorrow. And okay. Now, if you'd addressed it differently, it might have turned out differently. But later on, I talked to the judge's clerk, and the judge's clerk said, well, here's the thing. He goes, we actually had a couple alternates that we could use, and the judge brought the guy in and said, what's going on? The guy told him, and so the judge said, okay, fine, but you understand the way you handled it was wrong. You don't just announce, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. But the guy did spend a few minutes. I believe he was handcuffed and taken downstairs where they have a holding cell. It's Oakland County Circuit Court. And it's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. But it was also, I remember the whole courtroom was like this. And the guy goes, I won't be here tomorrow. It's like, really? Tell us where you think you're going to be, and we'll have a bailiff bring you here, and you will be here tomorrow. Okay, so people have to understand, with great responsibility, hold on. There's a saying about this. I'm joking, of course. But jurors are extremely important to our system. And in fact, and I like to point this out to people, in a jury trial, when the judge walks into the courtroom at the beginning of the day, everyone stands, all rise for the judge. Judge sits down, everybody else sits down, they talk for a few minutes. Then they go, bring in the jury. And the bailiff will announce, all rise for the jury. Everyone stands up, including the judge. And I like to point it out to people who complain about jury duty. I understand it's a pain in the butt. However, you understand that the jury actually is the top of that food chain in the courtroom. The jury, the judge, everybody else. Because even the judge stands up when the jury comes in. Okay? And so when you're being questioned about jury duty, you have to take it seriously and tell the truth. You are sworn to tell the truth when you're being questioned on voir dire. And I've never served on a jury, but I've been called many times, and I've been subjected to voir dire also. And I remember listening to the questions I was asked and answering them accurately because I had to, because I was sworn and under oath. Okay? And so this situation here, we don't know for certain how much that played into it, but I suspect it did. But the judge reversed the verdict and on the record has said, well, it went against the great weight of the evidence. However, I suspect the juror misconduct may have played into it as well. So, Graham, thanks for sending that from Atlanta News First. That is written by Andy Parati. Judge reverses verdict after the juror accused of lying about his job. And like I said, the guy could have been hit with costs as well if the judge felt like it, but apparently did not do that here. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye. I told you there'd be an ad at the end of the video. Here we are. We're here to talk about Factor. Factor, of course, makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. And to show you how simple this is, I want to get this across. Simplicity is one of the keys here. Down in the corner, I'm going to show you a video of the last box of Factor meals that got delivered to me. I put them on the counter, slice open the box, throw one in the microwave for 2 minutes, put the rest in the fridge, and in this case, 2 minutes and 34 seconds after I place the box on my counter, I'm pulling the food out, ready to eat. 2 minutes, you can't beat that. And so if you have a busy lifestyle, not enough time in your day, of course, this is one of the things you can do. And so every fresh, never frozen meal is chef crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. They've also got all kinds of other cool stuff. They've got add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunches, snacks, beverages, and so on. They have all kinds of... You want to visit the website and take a look at what they've got. Take a look at the menu of items they've got there. And they've got so much stuff. So they also offer snack options for breakfast, smoothies, juices, small bites, and more. And that's all great stuff. But I'll tell you right now, I was working on a project in my yard. Okay, I'm one of these guys where I like to go out when the weather's nice, and you gotta make hay while the sun shines, they say. And so working in the yard, and I came inside and I thought I gotta eat something and get right back out again. I'm like, oh, I've got some factory meals in the fridge. Just grab one, take a pick, and 2 minutes later, I'm eating it. A few minutes to let it cool off, but, you know, a few minutes later, I'm eating it. I go right back out and I go back to work. So the selection is amazing. It's food I'd never prepare myself. I can't imagine all the ingredients and stuff we got to buy and the mess you'd make preparing it. So here are the meals I got in the box that you got to watch me unpack in those 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Chicken Florentine, queso fundido ground beef, queso fundido and ground beef, grilled pork chop and smoked cheddar collie grits, sun-dried tomato chicken, peanut Buddha bowl, and smoky tofu and baked beans. And by the way, I actually saw that one. I thought, tofu. I don't think I've had a lot of tofu in my life. I wonder how that'll be. Turns out it was great. It was great. And that's the thing. This also overcomes one of those things. I'll admit this is true. I generally don't like to try new things. But with Factor, I've actually said, I'm not going to pick my meals. You guys pick them for me. Just send me random meals. Just send me random meals. And it turns out that I'm pleasantly surprised by the stuff I'm unfamiliar with. And I go, smoky tofu and baked beans. And it was good. It was good. So keep in mind that you don't just get a piece of chicken. It's not just a protein. On the side, you get premium produce like broccoli, broccolini, things like that, that perfectly complement your protein because, again, chefs put these meals together and they have an eye towards what's going to taste good, what's going to work good. And, of course, all of this fits perfectly into your lifestyle no matter how busy you are. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code LEHTO'sLaw50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code LEHTO'sLaw50 or factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. And like I said, what you want to do, if nothing else, is simply go there and look at what they have to offer. And you'll see that it's amazing, the array of meals they've got, the options they've got, and you can go in, pick and choose how you want to order these things up, and they will be delivered to you like clockwork. And you walk out, there's a box handed to you by the delivery driver. You take it inside, slice it open, the food is nice and cold. You pick one, throw it in the microwave like I did, put the rest in the fridge, and you got meals for the rest of the week. And so whenever I've got a stack of meals in the refrigerator, I go there almost like a kid at Christmas, open the door up and go, let's go through these meals. Let's go through these meals and pick one we're going to have today. So like I said, those were the meals that I got in my most recent box. But I'm always pleasantly surprised because they send me stuff, and some of it, it's the classic stuff I like a lot. Some of it, I've never heard of it before. But I eat it, it's good, and I'm glad I got it. So Factor, I can't recommend them highly enough, and I think you know me well enough to know that that means something. So head to factor75.com or click the link below. Use code LEHTO'sLaw50. You'll get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code LEHTO'sLaw50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Looks like you're going to need some new dilithium crystals, Captain.